Today's lesson is empanadas, the versatile snack with a fascinating history. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about food. It's kind of a snack that's popular all over the world, and it kind of resembles dumplings here in Taiwan. You just have this kind of filling inside a kind of pastry and kind of flatbread or something like that, and you fold it over, and then you cook it, you bake it, or you boil it, or whatever, and you've got yourself an empanada, or as in the case here in Taiwan, you might have a dumpling. They're similar, but they're probably not exactly the same.
Yeah, or maybe like a baozi, the larger one with the meat inside. It's my theory that every culture in the world has a meat wrapped with dough wrapped around it type of food. And I think for Spain, this is sort of their version of it. The empanada, not quite a taco, which of course would be a Mexican, but also a little bit bigger than a dumpling. So it's a bit more of a handheld sandwich, a very popular food. And one of those foods that really has no limits. You can fill it with whatever you think you can put inside, as long as you can wrap the dough around and bake it. The empanada is a tasty snack that can be really enjoyed on the go. So let's find out about them. They actually have a long and interesting history, and it is a versatile snack with a fascinating history. Empanadas, the versatile snack with a fascinating history. Looking for a tasty, convenient, and satisfying snack? Few foods fit the bill better than an empanada. This delicious deep-fried pastry, which consists of dough wrapped around filling, can be made in any number of ways, and it's popular in countries all around the world. The recipe dates back at least as far as 1520, when the first known use of the word empanada was made in a Spanish cookbook. The snack subsequently spread throughout Europe, the Americas, and Asia.
大家好，第一部分我们来看到片语 fit 或是 fill the bill， 它指的是符合要求或是适合需要。例如 The large ballroom at the hotel should fit the bill for our company party. 饭店里的那间大舞厅应该能符合我们公司派对的需求。或者 The hiring manager was happy to find a candidate that filled the bill so quickly. 人事经理很开心，这么快就能找到一名适合的应征者。接着看到 dough，它是名词，意思是面团。举例来说 Sharon mixed flour, egg, and milk together to make the dough for the bread. Sharon 将面粉、鸡蛋和牛奶混合在一起，制成面包面团。再来是名词 filling， 表示内馅、馅料或是填充物。例如 My donut has a strawberry filling. 我的甜甜圈里面的馅料是草莓。又或者说 The filling of this pillow is goose feather,which makes it very fluffy. 这颗枕头的填充物是鹅毛，这使它非常蓬松。下一个介绍 subsequently， 这个副词指的是随后或是接着。可以说 Amelia quit her job and subsequently went back to college. Amelia 辞去了工作，随后便回到大学。再看一个例子 Dan failed to show up to work for 3 days and was subsequently fired. Dan 连续3天都没有来上班，之后就被解雇了。
Okay, it's time for us to describe the first part of our lesson, or rather to break it down for you. And again, we're talking about empanadas, and we're describing this snack as being versatile or versatile. You can pronounce it both ways. Versatile just means it can be used in a lot of different situations. It's very flexible. It can be adapted to fit many different tastes. And we're talking about empanadas today. They're versatile, they're flexible,and they have a fascinating history, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, here in the first paragraph, it says, looking for a tasty, convenient, and satisfying snack? Few foods fit the bill better than an empanada. So, of course, lots of our dear students are busy. They work hard. And, of course, when you're busy and working hard, you might get kind of hungry, and you might be looking for a satisfying snack, something that's tasty and will fill you up. It won't make you feel so hungry, but, of course, you want to eat something tasty. Well, if that's the case for you, then few foods are more suitable than an empanada, okay? So if something fits the bill, it is suitable for the situation. It's just what the doctor ordered.
So let's find out exactly what is an empanada. It says this delicious deep-fried pastry, which consists of dough wrapped around filling, can be made in any number of ways, and it's popular in countries all around the world. So there's a basic description of what an empanada is. Well, it's delicious, we know that, but it's a pastry, so a pastry tells us it is made with dough. Anything that is made with dough can be described as pastry, but generally things like bread or cake or pie, we wouldn't. Something smaller like a Danish or a croissant or something like that, that would definitely be a pastry. Bakers often make pastries of various types. This pastry, this dough-based food, is deep fried. I didn't know that. I thought it was baked, but actually you put it in hot oil, like French fries are deep fried, or when you enjoy fried chicken, crispy fried chicken. That is deep fried in oil, so you get the dough, and then you dip it in the oil for a few minutes, and it gets that nice golden color. And of course, all the things inside, they also get very, very warm, and the cheese melts and all that good stuff happens in the hot oil, deep fried. And this consists of dough wrapped around filling. That's what this pastry is. Many other pastries would be dough with cream and sugar, chocolate, something like that. But here we have dough wrapped around filling. Dough being basically the building blocks of bread. When you take flour and water and salt and pound it together and mix it together using your hands and your muscles, you're creating dough. And of course, the basic thing we make from dough is bread, but many other things can be made from dough as well. This dough is wrapped around filling. This is the magic part. What is inside is the filling. And we would use the same term for dumplings, anything like that. If you like your xiaolongbao with shrimp, that would be a filling. Pork, cabbage, these are different fillings for dumplings. And of course, you can put lots of other things in them as well. And so this dish can be made in any number of ways. So the filling, kind of like with the topping of a pizza or what you put inside a dumpling, the only limit is your imagination. You can probably make a sweet one with chocolate or bananas inside. You can make a meaty one with cheese and ham and things like that. It can be made in any number of ways, and it's popular in countries all around the world, just like dumplings are, just like tacos are, just like hamburgers are. It's a very international food.
These are available all over the world in different forms, and they have different kinds of filling. The recipe dates back at least as far as 1520, when the first known use of the word empanada was made in a Spanish cookbook. So to date back just means we're talking about the history of something, how far back in time it goes. So we could say the recipe comes from at least 1520. It could be older than that, but that's when we have the first use of the word empanada in a cookbook from Spain. And empanada is a Spanish word. The word pan in the middle there means bread. So if something's empanada, that means it's wrapped in bread or wrapped with a crust. And that's why we have the word from Spanish. And the snack subsequently spread throughout Europe, the Americas, and Asia. So subsequently means afterwards. After the Spanish put their own touches on this particular dish, that recipe and this idea spread around the world. Subsequently, afterwards, it went to Europe, it went to the Americas, North and South America, and of course, Asia. I think samosas in India is kind of the same thing.
Absolutely. Very, very similar. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back in no time because I'm getting hungry, but we will be back for part 2 in just a second. Empanadas were originally cooked as whole pies, but since then they've shrunk considerably in size. Although they are typically shaped like half moons, some variations come in rectangular or torpedo shapes. Meanwhile, they can be sealed in various ways. For example, some cooks use a special braided fold called repulgue, but empanadas can also be sealed by hand or with a fork. The filling is most commonly a savory meat or vegetable, but fruit can also be used to make a sweet, indulgent dessert.
第二部分我们看到单字 variation， 它是名词，有变体、变化形式或是变化、变动的意思。例如 Piano players can often play different variations of the same song. 钢琴演奏者经常可以用不同形式演奏同一首歌曲，或是 The chef created a unique variation of the classic pasta dish by adding a spicy sauce and fresh herbs. 那名厨师透过添加辣酱和新鲜香草，创造出那道典型面食的独特变化。下一个介绍形容词 savory， 它的意思是咸味的或是辛辣的。例如 Nigel prefers savory flavors to sweet. Nigel 喜欢咸味胜于甜味。或者Chinese Sichuan cooking has a number of famous savory dishes. 中国四川料理中有一些知名的咸香菜肴。
Okay, here comes part 2. Let's break it down and talk about it for you. Empanadas were originally cooked as whole pies, but since then they've shrunk considerably in size. Now, whole pie, of course, is maybe about 10 inches across or something like that. And you have, of course, the crust or the dough at the bottom and on the top, and you'll have different kinds of filling in it, like apples or cherries or blueberries or whatever. And so it was originally made as a whole pie. Quite large, but of course, you can't really eat a whole pie at one go, you have to break it down. So these particular snacks have shrunk considerably. They've gotten smaller over time, and they're not as large as they used to be.
Interesting. So at first it was kind of like a large stuffed pizza. I imagine some smart person wanted to sell them in the market where you could walk around or just hold them in your hand. So they shrunk them down. They made them much smaller than that sort of pizza size to a handheld size. And that's the size that we will see today. And the shape has also changed a little bit from that pie shape. It says, although they are typically shaped like half moons, some variations come in rectangular or torpedo shapes. Really, that's interesting. So you can kind of make these things in any shape that you can get the dough to form itself into. Generally, though, yeah, they're half moons, basically a half circle. If you take a flat piece of dough, kind of like you're making a pizza, and on half of it you put the filling, and then you fold the other half over top, you will now have a half circle or a half moon type of shape. But there are variations. Variations are things that are a little bit different. It's the same basic thing, but we're coming out in different forms. If you think of different pizza toppings, those are different variations of pizza. You can have seafood, you can have vegetarian, you can have only cheese, you can even have baked apple and sweet cinnamon for a dessert pizza, but it's all pizza. These are all variations of a certain type of food. So they come in, or you can find them in, they are made in also rectangular, so more of a rectangle shape, like the shape of an envelope or something like that, or torpedo shapes, so sort of long and rounded at the end, maybe like a big cucumber or something like that. So you can find them in all sorts of different shapes or different variations.
Sounds pretty tasty. Of course, a torpedo is a missile fired by a submarine, so you can imagine that shape there, kind of like a fish. And meanwhile, they can be sealed in various ways. To seal something just means to make parts of it stick together so as not to allow water or anything else to get inside. So yes, you're going to seal these empanadas, and you can do it in different ways. For example, some cooks use a special braided fold called repulgue, but empanadas can also be sealed by hand or with a fork. Now, if something's braided, it looks like a braid in your hair. Of course, lots of ladies don't like to have their hair flying all over the place, so they may braid their hair. My daughter used to have very long hair when she was a kid, so my wife and I took turns braiding her hair so that it was more manageable. You take 3 strands and you move one over the other 2 strands and you go back and forth like that. And so in this particular case, the fold is braided. And when I see that, the first thing I think about is boiled dumplings here in Taiwan because it's quite traditional in my home to make them for Chinese New Year. You put the filling inside the little circle and then you push the sides together and then you braid these folds and they look amazingly like empanadas.
Absolutely, kind of like a rope shape as well, that braided shape. But you can also seal them by hand or with a fork. I think sealing it with a fork, having those sort of shapes that you make when you press a fork down into soft dough, that would be be similar with how you seal off the top of a pie as well. They often use a fork just to give it a little bit of decoration as well as closing the fillings inside the dough, shutting it safely in there before you cook it. The filling, let's get to that stuff because that's where it's really interesting. The filling is most commonly a savory meat or vegetable, but fruit can also be used to make a sweet, indulgent dessert. So again, like many dumplings, often it's savory. When we say savory, we're thinking meaty, salty, not sweet. So often when someone asks you, what kind of snacks you like, if you're like sweet snacks, you might like candy or cookies or things like that. If you like savory snacks, maybe you're more of a fan of potato chips or popcorn with salt on it instead of sugar. Of course, some people like a mix of both, sweet and savory, sugar and salt. But savory meats, thinking of ham and sausage and things like that, cheese as well, vegetables, you could put in some green pepper in there, some onions, things like that, or a mix of both. And fruit, though, it says, can also be used to make a sweet, indulgent dessert. Yeah, this is, in my mind, the same as that apple pie pizza that you often see at the end of the pizza menu. Sometimes people like to order a dessert pizza. That would be sweet with a lot of sugar. And we're calling it an indulgent dessert because it would probably be quite a lot. You might not want to have all of that sweet stuff for yourself in one empanada. Maybe that would be for sharing. But if it's indulgent, it's kind of luxurious. It's a little bit naughty. If you have that sweet chocolate-filled or whatever empanada, then you might say, oh, I have to go to the gym for an extra long time tomorrow because this is a little indulgent, a little luxurious, and maybe not something I should do every day.
Exactly. So every once in a while, you should be good to yourself and have yourself an empanada. Okay, let's move on now to the third and final part of our lesson. Let's listen first.
In other words, you can put whatever you want inside empanadas, and they aren't hard to make. So pick your favorite ingredients and give it a go. But be sure to give them a few minutes to cool down before you dig in, as difficult as waiting may be.
第三部分，我们来看到片语 dig in， 它的意思是尽情享用点点点，或是大啖点点点。举例来说 ，Jack was hungry, so he's already digging in. Jack 很饿，所以他已经开始大吃特吃了。最后一个例子 ，The children dug in as soon as the pizza arrived at the table. 披萨一送到桌上，孩子们就立刻开动了。
Okay, in other words, you can put whatever you want inside empanadas. To put it simply or to put it another way, you can put whatever you want inside empanadas, and they aren't hard to make. Of course, there are various recipes that you might want to try, but then you might use your imagination, use your creativity, and put different kinds of ingredients inside the empanada and see what you come up with.
So pick your favorite ingredients and give it a go. Absolutely. It's a great dish because as long as you know how to make the dough, you can really then let your imagination run wild. Pick your favorite ingredients. I guess the food that goes into other foods is what we're talking about when we say ingredients. If you look at a recipe and it says to make this, you need some chicken, you need some onions, you need some mushrooms. Those are the ingredients, right down to the herbs, the salt, the spices, things like that. So anything that you do to take a certain food, add it with other foods, combine it with other foods to make a dish, those are the ingredients. So pick your favorite. If you like the sweet stuff, pick some sweet stuff. If you like the savory, you can do that. If you want to do a vegetarian one, you can do that. As it says, give it a go. Give it a try. Your imagination is the only thing that is limiting you. Once you figure out how to make an empanada, you can make any kind of empanada. But be sure to give them a few minutes to cool down before you dig in, as difficult as waiting may be. Yes, very good point. They are deep fried in hot oil. And then if you have, for example, cheese inside, you will have very hot melted cheese. And as anyone knows who's ever taken a big bite into a hot dish, you often do need to let it cool down, cut it open a little bit, maybe take a small bite, let the steam out, because you don't want to burn your mouth. That would stop you from fully enjoying your empanada. It would stop you from digging in with quite as much enthusiasm as you will if you just let it cool down for a few minutes. Be patient. To dig in is basically to really get into eating your food. So if you're sitting around and everyone's being polite, the host at the dinner party might say, hey, why is everyone waiting? You should dig in, start eating, enjoy your food. Go ahead and start to feed yourself on the delicious food before it gets cold.
Yep, chomp it down, knock yourself out, enjoy it, indulge yourself. Even though it might be difficult to wait, yes, indeed, you still need to wait for the food to cool down. Okay, we're at the end of our explanation. Let's listen now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第3部分提到 empanada 不难制作，所以挑你最喜欢的食材，然后试试看吧。文中是用 give it a go 来表达试试看的语义。那么 give something a go 就是表达尝试啊，试着做某事。我们也可以用 give something a try 或者是 give something a shot 来表达尝试某事。 shot 在这边则是指尝试努力。例如Be sure to give snorkeling a shot when you visit Green Island. 当你去绿岛的时候，一定要试试看浮潜。好，课文下一句提醒我们，在开始享用之前，一定要让它们冷却几分钟，尽管等待可能会很难熬。文中是用 as difficult as waiting may be 来表达尽管等待可能会很难熬。那不晓得同学有没有觉得奇怪？这个句子里面没有出现 though, although, while 之类的连接词，怎么会冒出尽管的语义呢？其实句子里面这个 as difficult as waiting may be 也可以写作difficult as waiting may be. 那么形容词 difficult 后方的 as 它的意思就相当于 though 表示虽然尽管。那像这样的句型结构，我们用形容词或副词加上 as 或是 though 再加主词加 be 动词，或者是主词加动词。那像这样的句型是引导让步副词子句的倒装句型，目的就是要强调句首的形容词或副词。那要注意2个重点。第一个重点是句型里面就只能用 as 或是 though， 不能用到 although。 第二个重点是美语当中常常会在强调的形容词或副词前面加上 as， 就像课文句子它有在 difficult 前面加上 as。 好，那我们来看几个例句会更清楚哦。第一个例句是 Although it may seem tricky, it's actually quite easy. 虽然它看起来好像很困难，但其实蛮简单的。我们现在要强调这个形容词 tricky， 那就先把它移到句首，那就变成 tricky although it may seem。 但这时候我们要把 although 改成 as 或是改成 though， 然后呢 tricky 的前方还可以加上 as， 所以句子它会变成Tricky though it may seem， 或者是 tricky as it may seem， 或者是 as tricky as it may seem， 逗号 it's actually quite easy。 好，那来看第二个例句是 Although he tried hard, he couldn't finish it on time。尽管他很努力，但就是无法准时完成。我们现在要强调这个副词 hard， 先把它移到句首，变成 hard although he tried。 可是这时候我们记得要把 although 改成 as 或是 though， 那么同样的 hard 前方还可以加上 as， 所以句子会写作 hard though he tried， 或者是 hard as he tried， 或者是 as hard as he tried，He couldn't finish it on time。 当然中间要加逗号哦。好，那以上就是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Versatile. With its creamy texture and rich flavor, the avocado is a versatile fruit that is perfect for numerous dishes. Pastry. Freshly baked pastry is always a satisfying treat. Dough. Grandma covered the dough with a damp cloth and left it to rise. Subsequently.Molly finished her homework and subsequently went for a walk. Variation. The restaurant offers a spicy variation of the traditional soup. Ingredient. Each ingredient in the recipe plays an important role in the dish.
Discussion starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter. The question is, what fillings would you use if you tried to make your own empanadas? Why?
If I were making empanadas, I'd love to try filling them with some really Spanish ingredients, maybe some nice ham. I think that would be great because I would love to try one of the authentic empanadas. Since I can't go to Madrid or Barcelona or wherever they make them the best, I would try to recreate the most Spanish flavor in my own kitchen here.
Well, my idea is similar to yours. I would experiment with fillings from Mexican food. And of course, Mexico is similar to Spain because they speak the same language and they share some cultural traits. So I would put fillings in there based on different regions, like maybe they make different empanadas in Guerrero or Michoacán or Jalisco or places like that. Indeed, they may be very tasty based on different regions.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.